we think on the side of the energy, while we see challenges, but we also see opportunities. We have 6 major rivers and several other ones, on whom mini grids and major hydro dam can be built. We have almost all year round. We have sunshine. Even when it's raining, it's lighting up. So we have potential for wind. I mean, for wind also. That's for solar, potential for wind. We haven't done much studies on wind, but we think offshore, there are potential for wind energy. So we see a lot of potential out there. So from the government perspective, what we're looking at is government right now, all of the infrastructures as it relates to transmission and distributions are down. We have few initiatives through the West Africa Power Pool, through the Transcore transmission line, but that's insufficient even when it comes online. Our energy needs and capacity is almost 1,500 megawatts. When all of those facilities come online, we'll still be around 300, 350. There's a huge deficit. And so we need, I think the solution for Liberia would be mini and off-grade. In the midst of the challenges, mini and off-grade electrification would be better because most of our towns and villages are far apart. Liberia is sparsely populated. The population are not concentrated in one area, except for the capital city, Monrovia. The rural part of the country, the populations are spread across. And so we think off-grade and mini grades will do better for Liberia. So we see a better business opportunity. Right now, our economy is struggling. So government still don't have the money to even finance rural electrification or mini grids or even the transmission and distribution. It's still a challenge for government. Like I said earlier, you can imagine hospitals have to shut down at some point, sometime in the night because they can't run without electricity because they only run on diesel generator. So across the country, and when we talk about energy access, right now our focus is on electrification, not even energy for consumption for cooking. About 95 to 98% of our energy for cooking is derived from firewood, and which put pressures on the ecosystem. And a lot of people burn coal, prepare charcoal, take it to the city and other communities. Some of the rural communities just cut woods and use them for cooking. And so clearly there's a pressure on the environment. There's huge clearance of our forests. May I submit to you that Liberia still contains, in the midst of those challenges, we still are home to thousands of animals and plant species that can be found in most part of the world. It's a biodiversity hotspot. And it's also has the largest remaining forest in the Upper Guinea. And so there's a need, urgent action to protect those ones. But in the midst of the economic challenges, when you're telling people stop cutting the wood, the next question is how do we cook? And how do we live? And so there are challenges right there. So for us, energy access is number one priority of the government. In addition to road, energy access is number one because in the absence of energy, you can almost do nothing. I said in the earlier presentation this morning that we have an economy that runs less than 12 hours in a day. I mean, when there is daylight, the economic life of the country starts. When it gets dark, everything is shut down. And when we come to countries like Sweden or to Madrid, and you see people living almost 24 hours doing everything, you can imagine where we come from.
Okay, thank you so much. I think you made a very compelling case there for the economic and social impacts of trying to bring energy access to to Liberia, and we're very pleased that Liberia is one of the countries that the Beyond the Grid Fund for Africa will be working with. So
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Adam. I'm very conscious of time, and I know that there are a number of other speakers in Stockholm. So I'd like to thank both of you and the audience here, and I'll pass you back to Josephine in Stockholm.
Okay, thank you, Ash. Thank you, Ash. He was talking about cooking. Here we have a good example of a cooking stove that is really clean, and we have some popcorn here, so you are welcome to taste some of those. Those are not from Africa, I think. But anyway, 800,000 people so far getting access to energy in Zambia. How have you actually been able to prove that? Merja Laakso, you come from REEEP, who is the Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Partnership, who's actually implementing the program Beyond the Grid Fund in Africa. Merja has had made a master in South Africa before joining REEEP, so she has some knowledge about the circumstances there as well. Can you a little bit explain what kind of challenges have you met when starting the implementation, and how have you actually measured and verified the results?
Yes, thank you. So one of the early challenges we had in developing this type of program was ensuring accountability, so making sure BGF is really meeting its objectives. So how do we measure that? We're contracting service providers to deliver energy services in Zambia, and they are selected for funding based on business models for serving the Zambian markets. So our role as REEEP is to make sure that those customers are really being signed up for the services, and that the business models servicing them are still viable. So we had the challenge to set up the frameworks to monitor all this and make sure this is happening. So we would need to understand how many customers have been served. We understood that just reporting by the companies wouldn't give us the sufficient proof that this is actually happening. And for understanding viability of the business models, we would need to be really well informed as fund managers. So we need to manage quite a lot of information and data, regardless of how we implement this. So we address this through automatizing a lot of the reporting from the companies. And this was really one of the key ways we have been able to set up an efficient but robust way of managing this fund. And in terms of how we measure and verify, so the fund is focused on social and environmental impact. And we're measuring the energy services that are provided by the companies on a multi-tier framework for measuring energy access. So we ask the companies to demonstrate how the products are meeting these criteria. And together with their sales, we could then understand how they are improving energy access in Zambia. And we have done technical assessments for all these systems to confirm that they meet the criteria. And I mentioned that we automatize reporting from the companies. So this means we have developed a system called Edison. It links directly with the systems that the companies themselves use for tracking sales and repayments from their customers. And this means we have the same data that the companies have. So this gives us really good trust in the numbers that we're seeing from them. So it's a key aspect for increasing transparency. We really understand who the customers of the companies are. We collect data on who they are, where they're located, what types of systems they have, and how they make their repayments. So this is really a key aspect of transparency. We can verify the customers. And we also publish data online. We get data every day from the companies. So there's a public dashboard available online that everybody can see. So that's one of the key aspects, I would say, for verification.
Great. And you have apparently a lot of female customers as well. So how does this beyond the grid actually affect their lives?
Well, so 35,000 approximately currently the customers are women, and a lot of them are, or there are a lot of beneficiaries that are women, so these are women primary customers that we are tracking in this system. So obviously these are also often families where the only parent is a woman, so they would be the head of the household. Getting energy helps women as much as men, but it's definitely a good solution for a one parent family. And one of the companies is selling a cook stove as well as part of the package. So this is really a product that is especially beneficial for women.
Good, thank you, Maria. We also have a couple of private companies or investors here with us. We have heard about how Sida actually supports this initiative. And here we have Tom Eriksson from Differ Group. You are partner and CEO. And we have Christopher Falsen from Trine. Welcome. Trine is a crowdsourcing company. But let's start with you, Tom. Actually, Differ Group is one of the companies that owns one of the Zambian companies who is now working with the Beyond the Grid Fund in Zambia. So can you a little bit tell me, what is your business model?
Okay, so Differ is a company based out of Oslo, Norway. It's sort of a hybrid between an advisor and an investment company, and we're experts in distributed energy solutions. To say a little bit about Differ's point of departure, we're taking our starting point from two major technology-driven shifts that have occurred over the last decade. The first one is on solar energy, and the fact that solar energy is now the cheapest form of energy for most of the demand for electricity in the developing world. That's fantastic. It's a revolution, and gives us a really lifesaver in terms of the climate aspects. The other shift that is equally important, it's also of universal relevance, but it's in particular important to the underserved and energy poor populations of the developing world. And that is the fact, or it comes from the fact that price of solar energy and price of energy storage has dropped over the latest decade, say 80–90%. At the same time, the cost of distributing power from plants to users has not seen the same drop in cost. So if you look at the cost of providing a household with a decent electricity service through a grid connection today, that will cost you about $4,000 per household. Behind that $4,000, if you break that down, you see that only $500 is the generation capacity, and $3,500 is the cost of bringing the electricity from the plant to the household. Okay, so that's very expensive to bring the electricity from the plant to the household. So why if we instead take an alternative approach and we bring the solar panels and batteries and install them at the households? So we install instead solutions at every point of consumption. What does that cost? For a similar, what is in UN language, tier 3 service level, which is quite advanced with the fridge and so on, the cost of a distributed solution is only 1,000. So 1/4 of the cost of the grid connection. This is the second shift. It means that it's cheaper to distribute panels and batteries than to distribute power through the grid as used to be the cheapest form. So that is a shift that is sort of changing the future of electrification of Africa and Asia. And this is why DIFFER is focused on distributed energy solutions, because we believe that the electricity future of Africa and Asia is distributed.
Great. You actually differ. Actually, you are both developing technology, and you're doing advisory services, and you're also actually investing in these off-grid companies. So, at what stage do you come into that financing phase?
Yeah. So DIFFER has also worked with many different companies. As you say, we invest in different companies that target the distributed energy market of developing countries, because we believe that this is going to be a huge market. We see already exponential growth, but this market is going to be huge, and it's the future of electrification. So we invest both in enabling technologies, which is generation solutions, solar home systems, super efficient appliances, energy storage solutions, but also in companies distributing or providing electricity services on the ground. So one of our key investments there is Vitalite Zambia, which is one of the companies supported by Beyond the Grid Fund.
And how have you seen? When did you establish the Vitalite?
Yeah, so we're typically an early stage investor. So we're typically among the first or the first private equity investor in the company, which was the case also for Vitalite Zambia, where we went in as the first, call it professional investor, back in 2014, just after the company was established. And we're still actually the only external investor in that company. So it's still majority owned by the local entrepreneurs, which is great. And we would never be able to be there without support from Beyond the Grid Fund, which is taking down the cost of building up a company. Obviously, for these solar home systems companies that offer solar home systems on a pay-as-you-go basis, as we say, you provide them with access, and they pay it down over maybe a period of 2 years. That means that first you have to invest in developing sales and distribution and after-sales service capacity. And then you get payments on that investment over a period of 2 years or longer, which means that you need some kind of risk alleviation in the beginning to be able to grow the company to a substantial or a relevant size without going bankrupt on the way. And Beyond the Grid Fund has been crucial in that for Vitalite. Vitalite now has some 130 employees, some 50 distribution hubs, and 500 agents. And it's now, with support of Beyond the Grid Fund, covering most of the Zambian country, and is growing healthy, and has become a fantastic company that has provided some 50,000 solutions to customers, impacting some 250,000 people.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom. Then we have Christopher, Trine crowdsourcing company. You have a slightly different business model.
Yes.
So, would you like to tell us a bit more? You are also in the off-grid market, but...
Absolutely. I mean, Trine started now 4 years ago. It's actually exactly almost 4 years ago we did our very first pilot. As you can see on the picture here, we connect investors and entrepreneurs or projects. And the very first pilot was actually a test to see, okay, well, if we have an entrepreneur, in that case it was Kenya, that needed capital for an installation, would we be able to raise capital from the likes of you and me in order to launch that project? And it took some hours for it to be fully funded. And on the basis of that, we raised equity to our company to build the platform that we have today and the company we have today. So in about 4 years now, we are soon to pass 2 million people getting access to energy through us. That is also like deployment is 30 million euros have been deployed. And this is through the really, it's now above 10,000 investors that put small sums from 25 upwards towards the 50,000 euro. So for us, we said, well, okay, we know that financial markets, we know that people using their own private savings want to do something concrete about climate change and the development goals as well. And we know on the other side that, I mean, daily we have incoming questions from companies from Colombia, Kenya, Liberia, Zambia, and so just connecting them is our place in this value chain. We are 21 today, based in Gothenburg, in Stockholm, and also in Nairobi. Nairobi being the hub for East Africa. What's happening now, the biggest change, so to speak, in the market now is that the majority of our portfolio today is solar home systems, which is similar to this. But we're now seeing a huge growth in what is also commercial industrial, which is larger installations where offices and farming and more of the commercial clients are now moving from diesel generators to solar as well. So rapid change and also very interesting. I think Vitalite, one case that came up, that is an interesting case where they probably monitored by REEEP, equity investment from you guys. We have invested debt and Sida with guarantees, right? So I think an ecosystem is being built up. For us, we had a framework pilot with Sida for a debt guarantee. That was also an important instrument for us to take early risk. So it's really like a network of players to make this reality. Yeah.
So you say you have some 10,000 people have already invested in your funds. What kind of return can you promise them, and how do you keep them happy?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? Because we are, and it's always like that when you do something that has never been done before. When you introduce a financial product that in one way should be compared to your fund or equity investments that you have on the side, but also contributing with both a carbon offsetting and social impact dimension to it, it makes it hard to compare. So what we've said is that in order to really reach scale and not only have a couple of million euros, but really reach the trillions of dollars needed, I mean, in this market alone, you say the number is $600 billion that is needed to reach universal access to energy. So to do that, we believe you need to have commercial returns. So we really believe that we need to push outside of what is an impact space into that a comparable financial investment that has the added benefit of also giving people access to energy and also reducing our emissions of carbon dioxide. But primarily it needs to be a really good risk-adjusted return product.
Yeah. Apparently you also use digital data to screen and monitor.
Yeah, I think a lot of similarities, I think, with REEEP. We've already before one of the companies that went in and out of the platform in like a day, I think yesterday in Malawi, we onboarded them 6 months earlier. And that means that we have an API set up with all the borrowers. They send us in real time the entire portfolio, so that we already, before actually giving them any money, we know the portfolio, the sales and payment pattern of that portfolio. So today we have 1.2 million households in real time updated in our databases. So if you plot that on a map, you can see with GPS coordinates where these systems are on the ground, which, I mean, 3 dimensions, right? This one makes us being able to take more risk earlier because we can assess companies earlier than if you look at financial statements. But 2, we can also give more back to investors with impact reports that are specific. And 3, we can monitor. Otherwise, I mean, monitoring 1.2 million households is quite tough manual work. So this makes it possible to do this. Yeah.
Great work. So it means that actually, if you have 25 euros, you can actually put that
or more,
preferably more.
Yeah.
But you can start with 25 euros and get some return, and at the same time, you help the people get energy access. I think that sounds quite nice. Great, thank you, Tom and Christopher. Let's turn a bit to Helle Lindegaard from Denmark. You're head of trust fund management at NEFCO. So NEFCO, for those who don't know, NEFCO is a financial institution owned by the Nordic countries. We finance green projects, actually globally, but we have a very strong focus, have had on Eastern Europe, and now we are involved in this Beyond the Grid Fund for Africa. And we actually manage a lot of trust funds like this BGFA. So Helle, we have been tasked with expanding the concept to other countries. So what's the plan? How do we plan to scale up?
I'll tell you, but first I want to give a comment because I think this shows the essence of public-private good partnerships, because you can hear all this energy and you can hear all this mobilization of funds and initiatives and playing together. And I guess that's the essence of this whole thing, that it's using public funds to de-risk and intensify private sector to go into markets and do things that they would otherwise be not so keen on to do, and then give support but also being sort of commercial in terms of that you need to give results before you get the de-risking, the public financing. But once you deliver, you can mobilize additional funds from the private sector and things can start rolling. And I guess that's what we all want to happen. What we are right now, and coming back to your question, is that we are trying to build on all this energy which has now started and has proven already success in Zambia, and expand into 3 other new countries. I think it was mentioned earlier on the video. So Mozambique, Burkina Faso and Liberia. While doing this, we are reaching out to stakeholders in an effort to understand what's going on in the individual countries, because you cannot just export something. Obviously, you need to listen to, like here we have our colleague from Liberia, to the Liberian circumstances, what's going on there, how are things organized, and how do Liberia want things to be organized in their country. And I guess that's maybe one element we haven't touched upon yet, which is also, I think, an important element in this concept, is that we are having in Zambia a very well-working task force where not only Sida and players involved in this initiative, but also other donors in this energy access environment are taking active part in helping building the framework, the regulatory and whatever is needed for things to work, and for businesses, and support their efforts in creating a market. So we are doing now a market scoping where we are working with the local authorities, energy authorities, and also having workshops reaching out to you guys, but also other energy service providers who may be interested in joining in and doing something in those 3 new countries. And Ash and Kari, who is here, my colleagues, they have been at those workshops, and Merja, you are the driver from REEEP of those workshops, and they have been very taking in a lot of interest, and there have been many people who have been engaging in that. And another thing we are doing there is that we try to, of course, listen also to the experiences we have had and learn from lessons we can already see there are to be learned in Zambia.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Helle. Then maybe some words then to Patrick. You are from Sida. Your colleague already told how it all started. How do you see now, how will this continue? What are the next steps? You see already we have a pilot project that has pretty nice results. What are the future plans for Sida?
Yes, thank you. And of course, I agree very much with the description that you give, Helle, about the energy and what is at the bottom line, the driving mechanism here, where you use public and private funding working hand in hand. And as you know, Sida is a Swedish international development agency, which has 50 plus years of development cooperation. And we firmly believe that the partnership with the private sector is the essence of how we're actually going to reach the SDG goals, not only in energy, but also in other sectors, water, health, around agriculture, and not to mention the challenges that we see in urbanization moving forward. We have the biggest wave of urbanization just around the corner, with 600 million people moving to cities in Africa coming up. So there are huge challenges that private sector and public institutions and taxpayers' money can be used. Now, obviously, Sida is extremely proud to be part of platforms such as the Beyond the Grid for Africa and Trine, and we're really, really grateful for the work that you do. We understand that there's a lot of private risk also going into this and a lot of efforts. However, as much as we are proud, I don't think we can ever be satisfied as we look at the high-level numbers that we see. Let's focus only on the SDG 7 around electricity. We see more than 500 million people in Africa still lacking access to energy. We have about 900 million people still using traditional cooking solutions on a daily basis. Of course, the effects are tremendous when it comes to deforestation, when it comes to the situation health-wise for women, for children, completely deploring and absolutely non-acceptable considering the tools that we have. So I think that the challenge going forward is very much building on these experiences, building on these excellent corporations, looking at the foundation of the business models that we have, for example, in Beyond the Grid, where we are looking already at how we can use that business model now and take it into the clean cooking space, for example, and develop a similar model around how to de-risk and how to work with incentives that brings private capital, private investors along the way to solve these solutions. So the challenges remain huge, and I'm quite confident that we will continue working with some of the actors around here today. Sida's role is very much around pushing the boundaries to the next level, asking everybody to take new risks, looking at, for example, people in refugee camps and situations where we have people that have left their homes. It's a very, very volatile situation, and we still need to reach out with private sector investments to solve also their problems in a cooperation with the end users. So there's a tremendous work to be done, and I'm very proud to represent Swedish taxpayers' money in a responsible way in this endeavor.
Great, thank you very much. I think we are running out of time. Maybe we have some time for some question. The people in Madrid will probably need to leave. They will actually go and pick up the UN Global Climate Action Award today. That was for the Beyond the Grid Fund for Zambia. So REEEP and Sida representatives are in Madrid. They will be there at in a short while. So maybe we say hello to Madrid. If you have still questions, please come back with those. We still have a couple of minutes. And if you have questions from here, please raise your hands.
Okay, well, thank you very much from Madrid. And maybe just to say thank you also to the audience here. I hope you find it to be an interesting session. Thank you so much, Stockholm.
Okay, bye, Madrid.
Thank you.
And so we had some, I think, Patrick, you put together very well. And I remember when my kids were small, we were watching this Bob the Builder, can we fix it? Well, we cannot fix it all, but we can help at least part on the way and help these people getting light so that, for example, this little girl can study. Something that is natural for us, but not for people around the world. Now, I would like to invite everybody to our networking. We have some refreshments coming in, and you have a great chance now to speak with our people from NEFCO, from Trine, from Sida, from REEEP, and from DIFFER, and ask them and really get into that. How did they do it? How did they dare to go in there? What kind of risk? Oh, we have a question here. Surgeon.
My name is David Kayongo. I'm from Uganda. I have a general question. First of all, I want to applaud